The slap landed before anyone even registered the movement, a sharp, echoing crack that froze the entire dining hall in stunned silence. Trays rattled, conversations died mid-sentence. And in the middle of that stunned stillness stood a woman with steady eyes and an unmoving jaw, her cheek reddening beneath the fluorescent lights. She didn't flinch. She didn't retaliate. She simply looked at the man who struck her, as if she were studying a storm she'd already survived. No one knew her. No one knew what she carried, but they were about to. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're rewatching from. I love knowing who is listening. Her name was Tessa Aldrin, though most on the base only knew her as the quiet sailor, the one who ate alone, trained alone, existed at the edges of every room like a ghost in uniform. She preferred it that way. Silence was her natural armor, a calm she had spent years building brick by brick. And the man who hit her, Corporal Dane Mercer, had no idea he had just touched the one boundary she never allowed anyone to cross. Tessa didn't react, even as whispers filled the room, rising like distant wind. Her thoughts were strangely still. She'd faced insurgents in deserted villages. She'd trekked through jungles so hostile the air itself felt like an enemy. But this, a man using his size to intimidate? It barely reached the threshold of fear, yet something inside her trembled. Not with shock, with memory of the night she'd vowed never to let another human being dictate her worth. Dane sneered, mistaking her stillness for weakness. Next time, he barked, "Watch where you're going." He turned to leave. She thought she'd never see him again. She was wrong. While the room buzzed with murmurs, anger, fear, uncertainty, Tessa quietly collected her tray, as if nothing had happened. But her knuckles whitened around the metal. Anger was easy to summon. Discipline was harder. She had spent years learning to master the latter. Only a handful of people on the base knew the truth. Tessa wasn't a regular sailor. She was part of a covert SEAL unit, one so classified that many high-ranking officers didn't even know its roster. Her file was sealed beneath enough red tape to cover a ship. The silence around her wasn't shyness. It was protection. Later that evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, Dane and two others cornered her behind the storage warehouse. A place without cameras, without witnesses, or so they thought. Dane's smirk returned. "You think keeping quiet makes you tough?" he asked, stepping closer, the gravel crunching beneath his boots. "I don't like people who act superior." Tessa didn't move, didn't blink. Her heartbeat stayed calm, steady, a drum trained for war. But inside, a moral tension began to coil. She had every skill needed to end this confrontation in seconds. But if she hurt them, even in self-defense, she risked exposing everything: her unit, her mission, her anonymity. She wasn't afraid of punishment. She was afraid of breaking her own promise, only using force when absolutely necessary. The men circled her. Dane reached for her shirt. That was enough. Tessa stepped back, her voice low, warm, and steady, a kindness wrapped in iron. "Please walk away," she said. "No one needs to get hurt tonight." For a moment they hesitated. Her tone wasn't threatening. It was certain, like someone who had seen too much to waste energy on pride. And then Dane lunged. What followed was not a fight. It was geometry, precision, and controlled power. Tessa moved with fluid calculation, redirecting momentum, lowering centers of gravity, striking not to harm but to neutralize. Gravel swirled beneath their scrambling feet. One man hit the ground. Another cried out as his wrist folded beneath a clean disarm. Dane staggered, shocked by how fast she became a blur of trained instinct. Then came the sound, not of violence, but of boots. Heavy, synchronized, disciplined. A group of officers rounded the corner, drawn by the commotion. At the front was Commander Hale, the man who oversaw covert operations on the base. His eyes swept the scene. 3 men groaning on the ground, and Tessa standing calm, hands lowered, breath steady. "Tessa," he said, his voice firm but not unkind. "Report." She hesitated, moral tension twisting again. She didn't want to embarrass them, but she wouldn't lie either. "They cornered me," she said softly. "I defended myself, that's all." Dane sputtered. She attacked as Commander Hale, cut him off with a raised hand. Then he stepped forward, his tone suddenly cold. "Corporal," he said. "Do you have any idea who she is?" Silence fell, a deep, electric silence. "She outranks you," Hell continued. "Not on paper, but in every way that matters. You laid your hands on a member of a classified SEAL team. Consider your career terminated." Gasps rippled through the gathering crowd, followed by a heavy, stunned stillness. Dane's bravado evaporated, replaced by a fear he could no longer hide. But Tessa stepped forward. "Commander," she said softly, "let him handle the consequences the right way. No humiliation, just accountability." Hale studied her for a long moment, then nodded. The crowd dispersed slowly, whispering her name like a secret they had just uncovered. Later that night, alone beneath the cool wash of moonlight, Tessa breathed deeply, not in triumph, not in relief, but in quiet acceptance. She hadn't hurt them. She hadn't exposed herself. She had simply stood her ground, because strength isn't loud, it's steady, it's patient. It rises exactly when it must. And as the memory of the slap faded into the night, the dining hall silence echoed once more, this time in peace. If you enjoyed this story, leave a comment, share your thoughts, subscribe to Whispered Words for more powerful stories like this. Stories where courage finds its voice. Even in silence,